What's up guys, welcome back to another classic episode of Think Tank Thursday on Parkour Journeys. Thanks for joining me again. This is where we cover pretty much everything you need to know about parkour, from mindset, overcoming fears, your psychology in parkour, all the way to taking care of your body, longevity. And I'm bringing you my 12 years of parkour experience to basically help you avoid all the pitfalls that I ran into during my training and just really help you have a nice smooth ride and help you progress rapidly. So today we're going to talk about something really important, and it's quite a subtle detail, and this can really help you whether you're beginner, intermediate or advanced. It's a mindset that you can miss at each stage in parkour, and I really think it's something that's super important, especially if you're quite an overthinker, which I tended to be, something I've totally gone the opposite direction with now and learned to cultivate a different type of mindset, which is more body awareness based, which is a lot of what I'm teaching on the Think Tank Thursdays, because I believe it's super important when it comes to parkour to not be a massive overthinker, like too logical. So this is an aspect that I'm gonna call cultivating your impulses. So what do I mean by that? Impulsive tends to be quite a bad word. People tend to think it's like something that you want to avoid, but actually when it comes to parkour, impulses are super important, and they are a good indicator, a good sort of north star as to where you want to be directing your energy during a session. And it's quite difficult to explain what I mean by impulse, because it's a feeling, but I'll try and do my best to describe it. Essentially what I mean is when you're out and you're ready to go, you've already warmed up, you're ready, you're in your session, and you get that kind of pull towards a move that you want to do. And it's not even like, oh, I want to do that move, and you've thought about that move. It's almost more along the lines of you're standing up somewhere and then you see a wall that you want to jump down to, and you have a decision in that moment to whether or not you're going to be like, no, I need to prep, I need to think about this, I need to suss out the correct way of doing it. Or you have the choice to follow the impulse, which is that pull to just see and do. Just see the move and go for it. And I think it's super important to cultivate this type of parkour, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of, what people tend to do and what I used to do is you'll generally overthink your parkour. You'll generally sort of be trying, like, using your mind to decide what kind of parkour you want to do. You're going to be like, especially if you're really caught up in this, you're going to be thinking about what's cool, what's a cool move, what's going to look good, what's like a hot move at the moment, what's like on trend for parkour. And like you don't think of it like this. You're not like, oh, what's on trend, but you will have seen videos where you're like, oh, lots of people doing a lot of dive kongs right now, I want to try those. And don't get me wrong, that's really good if it is something where it's like going to help you develop something that you don't normally try. But if you're doing it for the sake of like, for other people's sake, basically, you're doing it for the Instagram clip, you're doing it because everyone's doing it, you're doing it because that's the done thing in parkour at the moment. We definitely have trends, and we're definitely not immune as a community to having those kind of mindsets, and I think it's super important to get us as far away from that as possible. Not necessarily get rid of it altogether, because obviously it can be quite important to have sort of moves that get thrown out there that you see and you're like, whoa, that's something new, that's something cool, I want to try that, and that will help expand your parkour, don't get me wrong. But if that is the sole guidance on what you do when you train, you're missing a lot of the breadth of parkour. You're missing a big, deeper connection with your movement that you could be getting. You'll also think about things like what you wish you were better at, what you want to work on, and what you know you're lacking in, which I will cover in later videos, and that is definitely another really important portion of parkour, but it isn't all of it. And this cultivating your impulses, what I'm going to talk about now, is an area that I don't think gets really very much talked about at all in parkour, and I know that we all feel it. I don't think it's been communicated, so I'm going to attempt to talk about that now. So what you can do instead of overthinking your parkour, thinking about the moves you want to do, thinking about what's cool, etc., what you can do is you can move into a space where your mind is not really giving you anything in terms of like, you're not kind of structuring, you're not putting that extra layer between yourself and the move. You're not deciding what you want to do. You're looking and you're feeling, and you're going for the things that are right in front of you, because it's what really takes your interest, what actually you want to do, what you physically are drawn to doing. When you're in certain positions and you see different opportunities, sometimes, a lot of the time, especially if you are an overthinker, like I say, you're gonna shy away from those because it's not what you're doing right now, or you think that you have a process with parkour where you've got to look at it, you've got to prep it, you can't trust yourself, you can't trust what you want to do, and you miss out on that kind of space where it's like what I feel like true parkour is, where there's no preps and there's no thought about what you're doing. It's just like you gauge it, but you don't gauge it in the sense where you're like thinking about it. You just sort of eye it up, it's there, and you jump and you go immediately. And we'll tend to do this quite easily, especially in like a warm-up. If you're intermediate or advanced, you'll be like, look at a rail, look at a jump as you're walking around and just hop over to it, right? It's stuff we tend to do if we are very, at ease with the surroundings and at ease with the smaller jumps. But I think it's really worth cultivating this in bigger areas where it's like, you've walked into a space, there's a huge gap. There's like, say for example, like a big rail precision, right? And you've walked up to the edge of a wall, you've just spotted it. You know intuitively that you could make it, but you immediately let your mind come in and scare you out of it. Or, your thought process, your logical mind comes in and says, you haven't prepped that, you haven't checked the rail, you haven't done this, that, or the other thing. And a big part of it is, of course, as well, making sure that you check your surfaces beforehand. And that's super important. You don't just want to be jumping some janky rail. But if you know the wall's solid, if you know the rail's solid and you've just seen it, you've been in that environment before, but you've never seen that jump, for example, you know it's all solid. Give it a go to just eyeball it and straight jump into it, and you'll feel what I'm talking about when you try this. It's kind of like a space where you're just doing and you're following that impulse. You're following what really gets you interested in parkour. And this is something where it's not just about doing those simple jumps and just having that sort of no mind space. It also helps you create. It also helps you cultivate that creativity, because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna try this thing. And even if it's not the biggest jump, it's not the most impressive jump, go and watch the video that I've put up called Every Jump is Worth Your Time. It explains in detail why you don't need to just be doing the most impressive things. Like, grab the stuff that really takes your interest, and you'll find that your parkour goes from like this linear little box to just this massive wide variety. I mean, parkour is not, it's not just like what you have in your mind as parkour. It really is. It's such a wide variety. It's such a wide encompassing word that doesn't just mean, oh, I'm going to do a big standing pre, I'm going to do a big running pre, I'm going to do a big Kong pre, right? Look at people like Pasha or like Jason Paul or Matt McCreary. They're all in this space where they're doing moves that don't even have names, because they're following that impulse to just move their body in a way that feels right to them, that is that creative space, that it's that impulsive pull towards what you want to be doing. Now, remember, I'm not saying this, you do need to make sure that you've warmed up, okay? And actually, this is an interesting point. You almost want to try and shut off / ignore those impulses before you've warmed up, because you don't want to just be following that train of thought and then jump and then smash into a wall, and then like you're not ready to take it if you don't quite make it, or your knee just seizes up because you haven't like got your body ready for movement yet. Make sure that you get your body ready for movement. But interestingly enough as well, you can take this mindset into your warm-up. As long as you forget about the other kinds of movements that you want to do, that the normal parkour stuff, and actually take your impulsive movement into your warm-up. You can do it where, if you're, I constantly talk about using mobility warm-ups to get you ready for parkour, not really the static stretching, but moving through ranges of motion and moving through different movement patterns that you're going to use that day, or pretty much all your movement patterns. And you can do that by listening to your body and not thinking through logically like, I know I need to get into this position, I know I need to make this shape. You are in your body, your awareness is head to toe in your body, and that's kind of where the impulse comes from, because you'll be like, oh, this bit feels a bit stiff, I'm gonna try and move my body in that way, and then you're gonna feel like something pull somewhere else. You're like, oh, I need to move into this way. When I do a warm-up these days, I'm not thinking like I need to check this off, this off, this off. I'm just going into my body. I've shut off my mind to all the other challenges of the day, and I'm there with my body, and I'm like moving in a way that it's like I'm listening to it, so that I move through the correct movement patterns that my body needs at that time. I'm gonna go into more detail about warm-ups like this in the future, so do definitely subscribe and stay tuned for a lot more information on warm-up and getting ready for parkour. And if you are new here, please do consider subscribing. I bring you videos every single Tuesday and every single Thursday. Thursday, we go over mindset, physicality, psychology, we jump really deep into parkour and exactly what it takes to be a world-class athlete. And then on Tuesdays, I'll take you around from town to town, show us doing parkour, meeting new people, new places, how they train, watch us overcome those mindsets, overcome those fears in the moment. And that's what we do on a Tuesday. So do subscribe if you've just found us, don't lose us, make sure you subscribe now. Now, what I'm not saying is I'm not saying be reckless. I'm not saying throw crazy moves in the name of impulse, okay? There is a big difference between listening to what you can do and just being a nut job that throws anything, you know what I mean? There's two totally different things there. You need to cultivate, as well as the impulse, a relationship with what you can do. And this is why it's so important to drill those basic movements, so that you know that you can bounce off properly. You know you can save yourself if you fall. You know you can stick a jump over and over and over again. You can look at a distance, you can jump it, and you can stick perfectly on it. This is why the technique cultivation is also super, super important. It's not about seeing something, saying fuck it, and then going. It's about knowing top to bottom where your body's at, and then being able to use that in a space where you see stuff and you can do it, and you do it well. You know, it's stuff that you can do well. It's not limiting you by always thinking through everything, but it's also not so outrageously, I don't want to say free, but because I would consider there's a difference between a freedom in your movement and a stupidity and an ignorance in your movement, right? So notice the difference there. Notice what you can do and what you're just hucking and being silly about. Like, you don't want to damage your body. You do want to look after your body. I'm not saying be reckless and follow those reckless impulses. There is a difference, and this is why I'm saying cultivate your impulse. It's not just about doing every little thing that catches your eye, but it is that in a sense. So as you can see, there's kind of a nuance here, there's details. It's not just a linear way of thinking. You have to be smart about it. But once you do nail this down, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll know the difference. So it's really worth trying and dedicating at least some of your session to just allowing yourself to move in the way that you are drawn to move. This is all about trusting your natural inclinations and not letting outside sources dictate what you're doing, and not letting that mind get in the way of what you really can do. Something that Travis said to me that stuck was that when he sees something, he knows he can do it, because he wouldn't have seen it in the first place if he didn't know that he could do it. And what I've seen him do, and I've trained with him a lot, and what I see him do is he will see something and it will be moments before he's already done it. He doesn't spend like, he doesn't allow a long enough period of time for himself to talk himself out of it, because what you will see something, and I've definitely now experienced this more and more in my own training, is you will see something, and the quicker you can go for it, the less excuses you'll make to you not being able to do it. And that's so important. That's all part of cultivating this impulse control and letting yourself go within seconds of thinking about what you want to do. This will help you commit to bigger jumps. This will help you understand your body more and more, and this will help you get rid of those excuses, because as you know, like, I don't know if you've heard about this before, but like something as simple as the 3-second rule, which which is applied to regular confidence building and things like that, where you see something and you immediately do it within 3 seconds before your mind has a chance to tell you all the reasons that you don't want to do it or that you can't do it, right? So applying this to your parkour is a big part of it, but I'm trying to show you the distinction here between the mind and the awareness of the body and the awareness of your environment. They're two different things, and the mind is very, very good at coming up with excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse, or just reason, what seems like reason, you know? Especially if you're a smart person. I talk to people all the time, especially when I'm coaching, and they're like, I can't do it because of this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. And I'm like, yeah, those are all really, really, really good reasons, but at the end of the day, you can either have those reasons why you're not doing it, or you can do it. And that's really, that's the difference, because those reasons are all very logical and they're well thought out, especially if you're a smart person. But what's the end result? This concept is going to massively, massively change the way you train. You're going to learn to trust yourself. You're going to learn more creative movement. You're going to learn more individuality with your parkour. It's such a broad term. It's movement in general. It's how you want to move. It's not just these boxed up techniques that are step by step. When you're starting out, yeah, I get that, like that makes sense, but as quickly as you can, you want to move into this more creative space that isn't so mind-based. And a big part of that, big chunk of that, is learning to trust your abilities, learning to trust that impulse, and cultivating that way of training. So I wish you the best of luck with this, guys. I really hope you go out and try it. I really hope you try and start to see that difference between when you're making excuses and when you're making reasons, and when that impulse is actually the truth, and when you should follow that. Remember what I said, this isn't about being reckless. This is just about cultivating that awareness. And this is going to bring you a lot of joy in your training, and you're going to feel like an absolute ape when you train. You're going to feel like a right monkey. It's a way to be. It's a good way to be. Give it a go. Great place to try this out is in like a parkour park that you are familiar with, or just a space that you know the surfaces, so that you can start to just do jumps. The thing is, a good way to start this is to start with jumps that you already know how to do, but on a fresh session when you haven't prepped them that day. Stuff that's pretty difficult for you, sort of intermediate level, maybe advanced, but you've done it before, but you don't do it with any preps, and you try and bang it out straight away. And then you can move on to doing this with stuff that you haven't done before. So yeah, give it a go, man. You're gonna love this. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've tried this out, if you know about what I'm talking about, if you've experienced this before. I want to have a conversation with you guys. This isn't just a one-way street. I'm making these videos for you, for us to talk. So ask me any questions down below. Let me know who I'm talking to. What's your parkour level? How long have you been doing it? Where do you feel like you're at? And yeah, we've started to develop quite a good community down in the comment section, so please come and be a part of that. And yeah, much love, guys. I will see you on Tuesday for the classic Parkour Journeys vlogs. If not, I'll see you back here on Thursday for the classic Think Tank Thursday. All right, much love, guys. See you on the next one.